Hey everyone, welcome inside our Preps on 11 Web Extra. Tyler Cass joined by Scorebook Live's Nate Olson as we really get into the thick, not just of the regular season of high school football, but now the hunt for playoff seeding really begins.
Yeah, it really does. We'll talk more and more about that. Week 7, it's hard to believe it. I mean, it seems like we just started these a little while ago, but I walked in the studio today. It's cool. It was cool last week too, and that's good. The guys love to play in this kind of weather, but yeah, it's getting cool outside. The action's heating up, and we will talk a lot in the next couple of weeks about playoff implications. We'll talk a little bit about that today.
All right, we're going to start with the big boys in the 7A Central. I don't think anyone's worried about Bryant, necessarily making the playoffs. After that, we'll see if they can defend. This seems to be they take on Little Rock Southwest this week, a team that, like we've talked about all year, is like right on that cusp of competing.
Yeah.
Now they get the big boys. What do you expect out of Southwest?
Well, Bryant really needs to play better in the first half. They have played the lighter end of the schedule, and they have struggled in the first half, and they've turned it on. So the end result does look like a domination, but with Northside, with Jonesboro, those games were tight in the first half. And now I think Southwest is better than those teams, but that's what I'm looking for. It's homecoming at Bryant. I'm looking to see how they come out because they've got the gauntlet coming up. North Little Rock not as good as usual, but that's still a game you can't sleep on. But Cabot on the front end of that gauntlet, and then the big Conway game on the back end of that gauntlet is going to test them. So I'm looking, for Quad Sanders and company needs to come out crisp in this game. This game means a lot to Daryl Patton. He's an alumni of Bryant. It's a homecoming. He would love nothing more than to come in and win the game. I think they're looking for a signature type win. They've made progress starting that program from scratch. It's a tough task for them. I think Bryant pretty much across the board in that league is bigger, stronger, faster than most everybody they play. Conway is bridging that gap a little bit, but that's going to be the thing that Southwest has to worry about. They need to try to do what those other teams have done and keep it close by halftime and then stay in the game in the third quarter. That's what they couldn't do, these other teams, but I think there's going to be a different kind of intensity for Bryant tomorrow night. I think they know that Southwest has 3 or 4 Division I type players on their team, including Derek Murdoch and at linebacker, and so they're going to have to come out ready to play. It's homecoming. That usually has one of two effects. You're either a little bit down because you're distracted, or you come out sky high because it's a huge game and you want to win and put the team away. So I think Bryant's going to be fine in this game, but I am watching how they come out, because that's something that if they don't play well in the first half against Cabot and Conway, they'll lose those games. So they need to do a better job of coming out and establishing themselves in the first and second quarter.
All right, now moving on. I'm never going to call a team a surprise that has a Razorback commit at quarterback. That's what Central Arkansas Christian has in Grace Wilson. But still, one of the bigger jumps from last season to this year that we've seen. They've passed every test so far. Another big one with Clinton.
I think it's okay to call it a surprise because, just because you have him, you've got a new coach, but that's also aided him. I think Ryan Howard is a younger guy who speaks those guys' language. I'm real big on that. These coaches, it is not impossible for an older coach to speak the language of the younger guys, but I think we're seeing a trend. Younger coaches have done a good job. They relate well to the kids. He's coached college. He played college. So I think that's really helped him. But I do think a lot of people, myself included, that was a league that had some pretty good teams in it. And I think it is a surprise that they are leading the league and now are on the back end of their schedule where they're going to be favored. The trick to tomorrow night's going to be is, Chris Dufresne, the old coach at Clinton, been there about 20 years. He runs the wing tee. They've got Zane Widener, who's run for over 700 yards. He ran for 240 in a game. They're going to try to keep the ball away from him. And they run a lot of misdirection. So that's hard, but I think the thing that they're going to have a hard time keeping up with is explosive offense at CAC. I think CAC playing on Mustang Mountain, they're putting up points in bunches, and Wilson is the real deal. I saw him, against Bauxite, and watch some other tape on him. So that has been a real aid for him because he is playing like a blue chip Division I player. And you are right, in 4A, when you have a guy like that, just wasn't sure how much he would develop this year from last year, but he has done a great job. And I think part of that's Ryan Howard because he's a quarterback and it's all meshed well. So they've gone from a team that didn't expect a lot to now could make a deep run in the playoffs and win a conference championship.
All right, now on to our game of the week and the 5A. The 5A, you've got Little Rock Parkview this year, and then everyone else trying to prove that they can be the team that might take them down. It's really a hodgepodge of 5 or 6 teams after that who keep kind of beating up on each other. We see Maumelle suddenly sneak in some wins. You got Robinson, you've got Pine Bluff, you got Whitehall, you got Mills. Now, before we get into this game, there is the elephant in the room of last week. Pine Bluff is going to have 23 players suspended for this game. I mean, just how much is that going to impact them in a game they probably need to win?
Well, they told us that there's 23 and 2 starters, and we'll figure out real quickly who those are when the game starts. And I think it's a couple of key guys, but not Courtney Crutchfield. We know that. He is going to be playing. He did not get suspended. And those guys that are suspended, they will be at the game in street clothes. They're going to be allowed to do that. So that'll happen next week with the Mills too. But I think it hurts their depth because they don't have a lot of guys suited up to begin with, and you don't have a lot of subs. So that could come into play. I think this is a real ripe situation for Whitehall because they're looking to try to get back into things. They lost to Morrilton. They have a pretty good team. Not saying that they couldn't beat Pine Bluff when they're at full strength, but certainly now the playing field should be leveled. I think you should be. They could take advantage of this. They're at home. Pine Bluff is beleaguered, but Mike Williams respected him a lot. Respect him even more how he's dealt with this situation. He's a class guy. He wants to bring class to Pine Bluff. He knows that people look at that fight, and not everybody, knows sports like we do. Those things can happen, and just because it happens doesn't mean you run a bad program or you've got bad kids. Tempers flare on the football field, emotions. You got a lot of Pine Bluff kids playing on Mills, and so, but he does care about how people perceive their program. He wants it to be known as a classy program, and he said all the right things in dealing with it. So they're not going to use that as an excuse, but I think it does open the door a little bit for Whitehall to run some guys in and out of the game because just as a matter of mathematics, Pine Bluff's not going to have their full complement of players available.
Right, those fresh legs, maybe, like you said, Whitehall kind of in need of a win here. We talked about CAC as a surprise. I think Whitehall, to this point, has kind of surprised some people.
Yeah, they have. And early on, they really rallied around Ryan Mallett. We've talked about that. But Noah Smith's a good quarterback. They have a good game plan on offense, and they've had a pretty good defense. They're kind of been a little up and down lately, and Morrilton, is probably better than we thought they were. So, but yeah, they really need this win. They really need to win this to try to stay in the playoff hunt. They want to make the playoffs, but I think that's a decent team. This is a game that even if Pine Bluff had everybody, I would not just totally pick Pine Bluff. I mean, I would pick them, but I would probably assume it's going to be close because it's at Whitehall, and this is a bit of a rivalry game. You've got guys from each school that have played. You have Whitehall kids that transfer and this and that. It's really close in proximity if you've been in that area, which I know you have, right outside of Pine Bluff, Whitehall is. So there's some emotions involved in that. But I think Whitehall will play a good game, and I think they'll be in the fourth quarter. They might have been in it to begin with, but now you've really got to take advantage of this. You've got an advantage. Now you've got to kick the door in and really take advantage of the number situation.
All right, we'll see how everything plays out Friday night. We'll have highlights from the games we talked about, plus a plethora more coming your way on the Friday Night Blitz.